This is part 2 of my two-part series on the business credit mistakes I see most often as a business owner moves deeper into their building journey. In part 1 on this channel, I covered the first 4 mistakes: filing your LLC too late, NAP phone inconsistencies, unused vendor accounts, and using a P.O. box instead of a real commercial address. If you have not watched that video yet, I recommend starting there, since those are the foundation mistakes that show up earliest in the process. This video covers the second set of 4 mistakes, the ones that tend to show up later, once a business has already built real momentum and started to feel confident in their progress. These are, in some ways, more dangerous than the foundation mistakes, because they happen after a business owner has already invested months of consistent effort, which makes the setback feel even more frustrating when it happens. Every single mistake in this video, just like part 1, comes from a real business owner who came to me after the damage was already done. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what to watch for as your building journey progresses past the early months, and exactly how to protect the progress you have already made instead of losing it to a preventable mistake. Mistake number 5 is letting a single invoice slip during a busy period or while traveling away from regular email access for an extended stretch of time without checking in. I worked with a business owner who had built a paydex score of 88 over 10 months of consistent 5-day early payments across 11 active accounts, putting them just 2 months away from their first Tier 4 application with a major issuer like Ramp or Brex that they had been targeting for months. Then they went on a 2-week vacation, and a Granger invoice arrived during that window and went unnoticed until after the due date had already passed, without anyone catching it in time to correct the situation before damage was done. Granger reported that single late payment to Dun & Bradstreet, and the paydex score dropped from 88 to 71 in a single reporting cycle, pushing them back from Tier 4 readiness all the way down to Tier 2 eligibility in just 1 reporting period, despite 10 months of otherwise flawless payment history. The fix is to set up automatic payments on every active vendor account before any extended absence, and to never let a single invoice go unmonitored for more than 48 hours, regardless of how busy or distracted life gets at any given point in the building journey. Mistake number 6 is application clustering, meaning submitting multiple vendor applications within the same short window of time without spacing them out properly across separate weeks of the calendar as intended. A business owner applied to 7 different vendors in a single 7-day period during month 3 of their building journey, eager to move faster than the recommended pace because they felt behind schedule compared to their original 6-month goal for reaching Tier 4. The Bureau algorithm flagged this pattern as a signal of financial distress rather than strategic building. Exactly the opposite signal they intended to send through submitting all of those applications at once in a short burst. That flag suppressed their approval rates for 90 days straight. And because they kept submitting new applications during the suppression window out of frustration and impatience, rather than waiting it out, they kept generating additional denial flags that extended the suppression period even further than the original 90 days would have lasted on its own without that compounding mistake. Mistake number 7 is using your Social Security number instead of your EIN on vendor applications, which is arguably the single most expensive mistake in terms of lost time across this entire 8-mistake series. A business owner came to me after 2 full years of paying vendors consistently and on time, with a paydex score that had remained at exactly 0 the entire time, despite all that diligent payment behavior on their part throughout those 2 years of effort. Every single application they had submitted over those 2 years had their Social Security number in the tax ID field instead of their EIN, which meant every payment was reporting to their personal credit bureaus rather than their business credit bureaus for the entire 2-year period without a single exception anywhere in their application history. The fix is to use your EIN on every single business application from this point forward without exception, since your SSN and your EIN feed 2 completely separate systems that never share data with each other under any circumstances whatsoever, regardless of how the application form happens to be worded or which field appears first on the page. Mistake number 8 is letting approved vendor accounts go inactive after the initial purchase that activated them in the first place, assuming the work is done once approval comes through. A business owner's paydex score plateaued at exactly 68 for 3 consecutive months, despite doing everything else correctly, including paying every invoice 5 days early without exception across every single account they held in their growing portfolio. 5 of their 8 Tier 1 accounts had gone inactive after months 1 and 2, with no purchases made on them since the initial activation, which meant those accounts stopped reporting entirely after 60 days of inactivity on the bureau side of the equation. The fix is to make at least one small purchase on every active account every 45 days without exception, treating ongoing activity as a permanent requirement rather than a one-time box to check immediately after approval and then forget about completely as time goes on. Now that you have seen all 8 of these mistakes across both parts of this series, the single most important takeaway is that every one of them is completely preventable with a weekly monitoring habit and strict adherence to the correct building sequence from start to finish, without skipping any step along the way, regardless of how tempting a shortcut might seem. If you recognize your business in any of these mistakes right now, the recovery process is the same regardless of which one applies to you specifically. Stop new applications immediately if you are mid-suppression from clustering. Audit every area covered across both parts of this series against your own profile carefully and honestly. Fix every issue you find immediately without delay. Wait the appropriate 60 to 90-day recovery window before resuming any applications. And resume at the correct pace using your EIN with clean NAP. Consistency across every source you have registered with. Download my free business fundability checklist at fundabilityhq.com/free-checklist, which includes a complete audit checklist covering every single mistake across both videos, so you can check your own business against all 8 before any of them become a problem for you specifically. If you have not yet watched part 1 of this series, covering the first 4 foundation mistakes, I will link that video for you to watch next on this channel. Hit that like button, subscribe for weekly business credit content, and drop a comment below telling me which of these 8 mistakes across both videos you recognized in your own journey building business credit. I read every comment and I will personally reply to you directly. I am Lindsay Shreve from FundabilityHQ. Build business credit with no personal guarantee. See you in the next video.